these reports. Is technology so advanced that something or someone can control our minds? Or is it just the stuff of science fiction?
On this nondescript corner outside of Chicago and around this busy intersection is one of the world's leading suppliers of protective equipment for people who identify as targeted individuals.
Ed Lazinski is not a targeted individual.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for talking to me today.
Of course.
But thousands of them come through his doors seeking help.
So I understand that this is one of the leading shops for targeted individuals to contact.
That is the reputation that we have, yeah. I mean, you'd have to have no heart to not want to reach out and help them as best you can.
Many of Ed's customers believe they've had microchips covertly implanted inside their bodies.
So you've come across people who have had chips in them?
Yeah. A lot of people call us thinking they may have an RFID chip or some kind of anomaly within them.
RFID?
Yeah, it's basically a radio frequency identification chip.
Okay.
We've used them for years, to tag animals in the wild that we were studying and things like that.
But you have found them?
We have.
You've actually found these chips in people?
You've come across them in people before, yeah.
Who don't know how they got there?
Mm-hmm.
RFID chips can identify an individual. Some people even believe they can track their whereabouts. Ed thinks targeted individuals are guinea pigs in some sort of undercover experiment.
People have asked me again, why is this hopping up so much now? The only answer that I absolutely have for them is that what we're looking at is a beta test.
A beta test?
I have no doubt of it. At this point, if it was military before, which, we're pretty sure it was, at this point it's in the hands of private contractors. That I have no doubt.
Ed offers a full-body scanning service to see if people have been chipped. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but I guess you can never be sure.
The first method that I almost always use is metal detection.
Okay.
A lot of people complain about primarily their earlobes, the jawline, or in the fatty tissue of their back or their chest, generally speaking.
Ed says he's also found chips embedded underneath people's scalps, in their noses, elbows, and feet. I'm in the clear so far, but some of the latest microchips Ed has found in people don't contain metal. To find those, he uses a different technique.
Another way is with the triple-axis radio frequency meter and the magnetic field meter.
These gadgets will pick up any electronic signal or magnetic field coming from my body.
Okay, now see that right there? Contamination. The Z-axis is picking up the Wi-Fi from across the street.
Oh, it's pointing right at, yeah.
Which is why we got that massive spike.
A false alarm. I'm relieved to know I'm not being secretly monitored. The number of cases being reported is clearly rising, but to figure out what's behind these attacks, I need to hear from the victims. Most targeted individuals are wary about meeting in person, but I've persuaded a few to talk to me via the safety of a video call. They're keen to tell their stories. How exactly have you been targeted?
I've actually found a round landing device on my ceiling light, and a private investigator told me that this is probably used for audio recording.
Aerial harassment, very low-flying helicopters. I know this sounds bizarre.
My activities were being monitored. Their primary goal is to isolate a target.
Targeted individuals often feel their thoughts and behavior are being influenced against their will.
I know to the average person this sounds like, well, this guy is maybe off the rails a little bit. As a scientist, this is not the reality that I recognize.
I also have 11 sensors in my body without my consent that I want them to get removed, and I'm looking for a surgeon to help remove these.
These are torture conditions.
This has clearly really had an impact on your life.
It has in ways that I will never be able to cope with.
My initial reaction is these things are really hard to hear. It's tough to speak with someone who's having this experience that's affecting their lives so much. It's terrifying.
No one I spoke to had any evidence to show me. But one man claims to have captured proof of his attack on camera, and amazingly, he's agreed to meet me face to face. Dr. Matthew Arnegard has a PhD in neurobiology and has worked at some of the most reputable universities in the country.
So when did you first know, without a doubt, that you were being targeted?
The harassment emerged out of interactions that I had immediately after moving into my apartment in downtown Vancouver. I was in a setting, much like where we are now, where across an alleyway there was another building. And these windows are very much like the windows that I had in my apartment. I had a solarium where I set up my office. The building across the alley was 30 meters away.
And it was an office building?
It was clearly an office. I know for a fact that it was an office.
So sort of like that one over there?
Yes, it was like that.
November 10th, 2015. Matthew is working at his laptop by the window when he spots something moving in the building across the street. Taking a closer look, he can see people slinking furtively around in the shadows, and 3 figures on a balcony looking directly at him.
And one of them started doing threatening gestures at me, like, basically, you're dead.
What do they look like?
Like just ordinary guys in their 20s.
So you mentioned that after you confronted this group of individuals, things ramped up. How so?
I came into my solarium in December of 2015, and in their kitchen area, which I could see, again, only 30 meters away, there was what looked like in my notes I called it a vortex gun.
After doing some research, Matthew later decided it was more likely to be an electromagnetic pulse generator. EMPs, as they're known, have the power to knock out all electronic devices within their range with electromagnetic energy. Matthew said the weapon was aimed directly at his apartment window. He's staring across at it, trying to figure out what it is, when he's hit.
When one of these palpable energy attacks happens, your body from head to toe feels like you're being electrocuted nearly to death. It's like someone took an electric rubber band and snapped it clean through your body.
Matthew decides to steam up his apartment.
I know that I wanted to make it hard to look into the window and get rid of this feeling of electricity in my body. So I put on pots of water, turned my shower on the hottest heat it would go, all the sinks, and then I ran out of my apartment.
Around midnight, Matthew returns and uses his phone to film what he finds.
This is the time when I was first coming back into my apartment after it was steamed up. But the steam is the only way I know to get rid of these very uncomfortable attacks. I have to go turn my shower off because I have it running full blast. It might be overflowing. Then I felt safer to go back to the window. And when I did, there was an impression in the window which was extraordinary. The MO of these harassing attacks is to use high technology and subterfuge to a level which is very sinister. This they did not count on. I have never drawn that pattern, and I showed you there are multiple traces of patterns like that. There's another one right there.
It does look like concentric rings with the line through the center and a circle.
My hand is shaking because they are trying to drive me out of this place.
What individuals or groups would be conducting this type of electronic harassment?
Okay, my personal view is that the military has been actively developing directed energy weapons. This has been going on for decades.